Prince Loki is currently chained up in the lowest realm of Elbaf, the land of the dead. Fittingly, the chapter where we learn this is also titled Loki of the Realm of Dead. This title could, however, be a reference to more than just the place where Loki is imprisoned, and it could actually be a hint to Loki's unnamed devil fruit. While Loki believes himself to be the sun god, this could be a classic case of misdirection from the story. It could in fact be that the legendary god devil fruit Loki ate years ago bears the name of a god that was mentioned all the way back during Alabasta, Pluton. When Crocodile first mentions ancient weapon Pluton in Alabasta, he says that the warship is named after the god of death. This may sound like a strange idea to some of you, as Loki literally calls himself the sun god, not the god of death. It has, however, already been brought up in the story that the giants of Elbaf connect the sun to the concept of death. During Big Mom's flashback, it is revealed that the giants have a tradition called the winter solstice, where they honor the death and rebirth of the sun in the winter. Earlier in the Elbaf arc, we also saw Rodo dressed in ornamental clothes, claiming to be the sun god. Dory and Brogy say that Elbaf's sun god looks exactly like Luffy in Gear 5th, yet Rodo's costume looks nothing like him. The reason for this could, however, be because Rodo was not actually dressed up as Nika, but as Pluton. There could in fact be two separate sun god deities in Elbaf, one being Nika, representing life and the sun of summer, the other Pluton, representing death and the sun of winter. This video is going to cover Loki having potentially eaten the mythical Zoan Pluton Devil Fruit, how Loki with this fruit could literally use the powers of the One Piece afterlife, and how ancient weapon Pluton being named after a god of Elbaf could hint at the giant's important role in the events of the Void Century. In real life, Pluton, or Pluto, is the name of the Roman god who ruled over the underworld. This god is, however, perhaps better known by his original Greek name, Hades. The way Crocodile describes it, it is clear that the god of death Pluton is a deity the One Piece world believes in the same way they believe in other supernatural beings, like dragons or phoenixes. The reason why this is important is because it confirms that there can very much exist a Pluton devil fruit somewhere in the world. Vegapunk during Egghead explained that devil fruits are a manifestation of people's dreams. In other words, every devil fruit we've seen in the story is a product of people's imagination. Because the people of the One Piece world imagine a being like God of Death Pluton, this can also mean that there can exist a devil fruit based on this deity. Pluton being the devil fruit that Loki ate could actually connect very well to what we know about his character. To get the fruit, Loki killed his own father, and it took all of the warriors of Elbaf to subdue him. As punishment for his crimes, it could be that the giants thought that Loki being imprisoned in Elbaf's land of the dead would be a fitting fate for someone like him. If Loki wants to be the god of death so badly, it is only karma that he gets to spend the rest of his life in the land of the dead. The land of the dead itself is seemingly a very cold region, which could actually be a hint to the powers Loki himself wields with his devil fruit. As said in the beginning of this video, the giants of Elbaf relate the concept of winter with death. This could be a reference to Scandinavian cultures that Elbaf is based on, where cold is often seen as being synonymous with death. Scandinavia itself being one of the northernmost areas on Earth, where people have to contend with very harsh winters, where nature withers and dies, and the sun is up only a few hours a day. This could actually be the basis for the powers of a god of death Pluton Devil Fruit. Unlike the warship Pluton that was named after it, the god of death Pluton's ability could in fact be to control the powers of winter. These might not just be regular cold powers, like controlling ice and snow, however. A Pluton Devil Fruit could instead allow its user to manipulate cold from the literal One Piece afterlife. This relationship between cold and death that was mentioned earlier is actually not only relevant to real life, but also to One Piece's own version of Hell. Hell is a place referenced throughout the manga, but what is interesting is that it is many times said to be a very cold place. This is for example seen in Impel Down, where level 5 is fittingly named the Freezing Hell. Where things get truly interesting, however, is with Brook. Brook is someone who has died and come back to life, meaning that he is the closest thing we have to a character who's actually seen the afterlife. After the time skip, Brook has a new ability he calls the Chills of the Underworld, where he is able to freeze his opponents with his sword. To make this even more mysterious, Brook is not the only character in the series who seemingly has this skill. During Egghead, Saint Ethan Baron Venus Churro uses an eerily similar move on the Pacifista, where his sword also leaves them frozen. It could be that Elbaf's Land of the Dead, Impel Down level 5, and the Chills of the Underworld all reference the same thing, where One Piece's afterlife is actually a very cold place. If there exists a god of death, Pluton Devil Fruit, it might be that this fruit allows its user full control of the cold of the underworld itself. Loki having eaten a devil fruit that allows him to control the cold could also be something that was foreshadowed all the way back during Dressrosa, as Dressrosa is where we were introduced to the character of Hajrudin. We've recently learned that Hajrudin is actually a prince of Elbaf and the brother of Loki. This is something Hajrudin himself hinted at years ago, when he declared that he wanted to become the king of Elbaf. Here is the important part, however. How Hajrudin planned on doing this was by eating the Mera Mera no Mi at Dressrosa. Hajrudin wanting to eat a fire devil fruit could actually make a lot of sense, if Loki himself had a devil fruit that would give him power to wield elements like ice and snow. Hajrudin's plan could have been to eat the Mera Mera no Mi, then come back to Elbaf and defeat his brother in a fight with its powers. I talked before about cold representing death being a theme present in both real life and in One Piece. This theme also extends to fire, where it is the antithesis of cold and represents life. We also have a good example of this in the Wano arc. During the Onigashima raid, Queen disperses an ice Oni virus throughout the castle, where those who catch it are turned into icy monsters, with only an hour left to live. This was however countered by Marco, whose fire turned up the body heat of the infected and allowed them to resist the virus. Another way to look at Hajrudin's plans with the Mera Mera no Mi is that maybe he wanted his own version of the fight between Akainu and Aokiji. Maybe Hajrudin actually did read the news about the fight between these two, and hearing that Akainu won gave him the idea to eat the Mera Mera no Mi. And Akainu is actually the reason why the Mera Mera no Mi is free to be eaten, because he's the one who killed Ace 2 years ago. I'm just saying, there is a possibility that Hajrudin is a big fan of Akainu. Then again, who isn't? Just look at this scene where he smashes the like button for this video. You should follow Akainu's lead and smash it as well. One idea brought up in the intro of this video is that One Piece's Pluton deity could actually look like what Frodo was dressed up as when pretending to be the sun god, or as this video speculates, the sun god of winter. To recap, Dory and Broggy say that Gear 5th Luffy looks exactly like Elbaf's sun god, yet Frodo's sun god attire looks absolutely nothing like him. Thus, there could actually be two sun gods in Elbaf, Nika and Pluton, with them representing the summer and winter suns respectively. Loki and Frodo thinking of themselves as the sun god of winter could actually fit what we know of them from Big Mom's flashback, where both of them were born right before the winter solstice. Frodo's sun god attire very much matches that of a Wendigo, which is an evil spirit from North American folklore. The first thing that came to my mind when the Elbaf arc started, however, wasn't a Wendigo, but the Leshen from the Witcher games, which is a creature based on real-life Slavic mythology. Interestingly, neither the Leshy or the Wendigo are based on Scandinavian culture, the primary inspiration behind Elbaf. This could however be simply another case of One Piece taking inspiration from multiple sources. For example, Sun God Nika itself is also seemingly an amalgamation of several real-life cultures. If Pluton is to be a similar One Piece specific deity, it could actually be pretty interesting, where despite it being named after a Roman god, Pluton could draw inspiration from Native American, Slavic, and other cultures. The idea of this video about Loki having eaten a Pluton Devil Fruit could however still work without Pluton actually looking like what Frodo was dressed up as. I do however think there has to be some explanation behind Frodo's attire, since it does seem to contradict what we know about Nika. There is one last big thing to talk about in this video, which is about Elbaf's connection to the events of the Void Century. Let's say that this video's theory is actually true, and Pluton is a god from Elbaf. This could suggest that the Giants were involved in the original construction of ancient weapon Pluton, named after their sacred god. The warship Pluton was originally constructed during the Void Century in Water 7 by the city's shipwrights. After the Void Century, Pluton was hidden beneath Wano, where it slumbers to this day, and its location is only known by those who can read the poneglyphs. Everything about Pluton's backstory seemingly points to it being a weapon of the ancient kingdom. Pluton's current resting place, Wano, is a country unaffiliated with the world government, and the Kosuki clan are actually the ones who created the poneglyphs, as well as the language inscribed on the stones. Water 7 shipwrights have also sought to hide Pluton's blueprints from the world government for centuries, indicating that they would very likely not have built the ship for Imu during the Void Century. It also appears very likely that Elbaf was another nation connected to the ancient kingdom. Elbaf to this day is apparently on very bad terms with the world government, where the government has been kidnapping and experimenting on giants for years, and Saint Valkyrie says that they have much to settle with the race of giants. Elbaf's giants also worship the sun god, which seems to be something heavily connected to the ancient kingdom. Not only did Joy Boy have the sun god fruit, but we've also seen a recurring theme in the story, where almost all the ancient enemies of the world government believe in the sun god deity. If Elbaf was indeed affiliated with the ancient kingdom, it could be that they played a key role in the creation of ancient weapon Pluton, by giving Water 7 shipwrights the material for building the warship. In chapter 1131, it was revealed that the massive tree overlooking the island of Elbaf is actually the treasure tree Adam. This is the very same tree which Wood Frankie used in the pre-time skip to build the Thousand Sunny. Frankie was also one of Water 7 shipwrights, who held the blueprints of Pluton. It could be that Frankie actually modeled the Thousand Sunny on the ancient weapon, and that he even got the idea to build the Sunny out of Adam wood, because Pluton itself had been built from this same material. This could actually be a big reason why the world government is so obsessed with Elbaf and the giants, where what they truly want is the Adam wood. The government's entire reason for having CP9 infiltrate Water 7 was because they wanted Pluton's blueprints so that they could build another Pluton. While they might not know how to build the warship without the blueprints, the government could still know that Adam wood is a necessary material for Pluton, and that they'd need to conquer Elbaf to get it. If the giants of Elbaf over 800 years ago decided to give the shipwrights of Water 7 the Adam wood needed to build the ancient weapon, it could be that the shipwrights decided to literally name the warship after one of Elbaf's gods, as thanks for the giants helping them with its construction. In short, it's possible that Elbaf worships two different sun gods, the sun god of summer Nika and the sun god of winter, Pluton, or, more simply, the god of life and the god of death. Loki could have eaten the god of death Pluton Devil Fruit, and he was fittingly imprisoned in Elbaf's land of the dead, as punishment for this crime. The Pluton Devil Fruit itself could give its user the power to control the mysterious cold of the underworld, which is why Hajrudin wanted the Mera Mera no Mi to be able to fight Loki. And finally, the reason why ancient weapon Pluton would be named after a god of Elbaf could be because the giants themselves provided the Adam wood for the warship's construction during the Void Century. Still, that's just one idea, and there's definitely a lot of other cool theories out there about Loki's Devil Fruit. If you enjoyed me talking about One Piece's version of the afterlife in this video, You should click here to watch a full video on the topic, where I break down why hell could be an actual place that exists in the story, and what this would tell us about the world government. Thanks a lot for watching this video to the end.